In the heart of an ice age winter, the world was a vast and merciless freezer. The air bit harder than any predator. The wind howled like a ghost over the tundra, and the very ground beneath your feet was a tomb of ice. For the hunters who walked this frozen earth, survival wasn't about comfort. It was about defiance. Imagine standing in their fur-wrapped boots. You've just brought down a woolly mammoth after a 3-day chase through blizzards. You're bruised, exhausted, and starving. The good news? You have food for the whole tribe. The bad news? It's already freezing solid before you can even carve it. So, how did Ice Age hunters keep food from turning into rock-hard, icy slabs of meat? The answer lies not in technology, but in the pure genius of adaptation, the quiet intelligence that allowed humans to outwit nature itself. For these hunters, the cold was both friend and enemy. It preserved food for months, but it also locked nourishment behind a wall of ice. Every meal risked becoming inedible, and when your next hunt could take weeks, losing access to your food wasn't an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. The first secret weapon was the land itself. Ice Age people knew their terrain better than any GPS. They learned that beneath the endless snow, the earth could hide warmth. In certain valleys, under layers of moss or deep forest soil, temperatures stayed steady, not warm, but just warm enough to keep meat from freezing solid. They dug shallow pits, lined them with leaves, moss, or fur, and stored their food inside, creating nature's first underground pantry. In a world without refrigerators, they'd invented one. But the cold wasn't easily beaten. The Ice Age didn't care about clever ideas. The air could drop to 50 below zero, freezing exposed food in minutes. So humans fought back with fat. Literally, they coated meat in animal fat, wrapping it in hides or layers of blubber. This natural insulation slowed freezing, keeping the meat pliable. The same substance that fueled their fires and lamps became their first packaging system. If you've ever handled raw meat in winter, you know what happens. Your hands freeze before the food thaws. For Ice Age hunters, this was daily life. But necessity forged innovation. They learned to cut meat into smaller strips, smoking or drying them near their hearths. The smoke hardened the outside, sealing in moisture and flavor, creating a kind of prehistoric jerky. Not only did this make food last longer, but it made it easier to chew in the cold, a small miracle when temperatures could freeze your breath mid-air. And still, survival wasn't guaranteed. The Ice Age was a time of giants, mammoths, bison, woolly rhinos, creatures whose size meant more meat than any group could eat at once. To waste it was unthinkable, so hunters organized hunts around weather. On rare warmer days, they'd butcher and dry meat quickly. During the coldest months, they'd store it in covered caches under snow and bone, safe from wolves and the creeping frost. Archaeologists have found these caches, ancient freezers buried for millennia, bones stacked over pits, hides stretched across openings. In some sites, traces of fire nearby suggest they built small shelters to protect their stores from the worst cold. These were not primitive people scraping by. They were engineers of survival. But perhaps the most surprising method wasn't physical, it was communal. In Ice Age, tribes' food wasn't hoarded individually, it was shared. The entire group rotated hunts, rotated storage, rotated cooking. If one family's meat froze, another's was thawed near a fire. If one hunter's kill spoiled, another's filled the gap. It was survival through cooperation, an instinct that still defines humanity today. Think about that. The same people who painted on cave walls, who made tools from stone and bone, were also building the foundations of human society through shared food. Every frozen mammoth steak was a lesson in teamwork. Of course, not every solution worked. Some food did frizz solid. When that happened, they'd thaw it near fires, slowly, carefully, so it didn't rot. In some cases, they even ate it frozen, slicing off thin, frost-hardened pieces. Think of it as the first prehistoric sashimi. Cold, chewy, and slightly gamey, but when you're starving in a blizzard, it's a feast. And yet, through all the hardship, something extraordinary happened. Humans didn't just survive the cold, they mastered it. Over generations, they learned how to read the seasons, track the migration of prey, and use the rhythms of nature to their advantage. They transformed from shivering wanderers into strategists of the ice. By the end of the Ice Age, humans had built a toolkit of knowledge that would echo through history. The underground storage pits of prehistoric hunters evolved into the granaries of ancient farmers. The fat, sealed meats became the inspiration for preservation methods used for thousands of years. The cooperation that saved them from freezing became the backbone of civilization itself. It's easy to laugh at the image of a hunter chewing on frozen mammoth meat. But that simple struggle is a symbol of something profound. Every frozen meal, every thawed scrap, every shared bite was another step toward our survival as a species. The Ice Age didn't just test humanity, it shaped it. When we talk about innovation today, or technology, progress, adaptation, we often forget that our first inventions were born not from luxury, but from desperation. The Ice Age hunter didn't have tools made of metal or systems of science. What they had was observation, creativity, and an unbreakable will to live. The fight to keep food from freezing wasn't just about eating. It was about enduring. It was about refusing to surrender to a world that wanted them gone. And that defiance, that spark, is the same one that built every civilization since. So, the next time your freezer overdoes it and your leftovers turn into ice bricks, remember, you're sharing in a struggle that started tens of thousands of years ago. Only now, you've got a microwave. They had a mammoth bone and a dream. Humanity has always found a way, not by escaping the cold, but by learning to thrive in it. From the frozen tundras of the past to the cities we build today, that instinct remains. Adapt, endure, and, above all, eat before it freezes. Thank you for listening to this story of ancient resilience. If it stirred your curiosity, if it made you imagine the frozen silence of that world and the spark of firelight against endless snow, then remember, the next great story of survival is always just one question away. Bringing down a mammoth was monumental, but the work didn't end there. Imagine the sheer logistics. A mountain of meat, freezing solid faster than any single family could manage. This is where their ingenuity truly shone, not just in hunting, but in what we might call their deep kitchen. They knew that every part of a kill was precious. Beyond the muscle lay the hidden treasures, organs rich in nutrients, and the bone marrow, a fatty, caloric gold mine. But how do you extract marrow from bones that have frozen harder than stone? They didn't have heavy-duty drills. Instead, they used heated stones. Bones would be carefully placed near fires or sometimes even nestled amongst hot embers, slowly warming until the marrow inside softened enough to be easily extracted. This wasn't just brute force. It was a nuanced understanding of thermodynamics. They used the very energy of their fires to unlock hidden sustenance. But what about the large cuts of meat, those giant slabs that were too big to dry quickly? Here, they combined their knowledge of the land with their understanding of fire. They engineered communal cooking pits, deep holes dug into the thawed earth or painstakingly chipped out of frozen ground, lined with rocks, then heated with massive fires. Once the rocks were scorching, the fire was removed, and layers of hot stones, wet moss, and earth would cover the meat. This created a colossal slow cooker, a prehistoric oven that could roast enormous portions of meat for hours, even days, gradually thawing and cooking it, sealing in vital fats and moisture. This method didn't just cook. It tenderized meat that would otherwise be impossibly tough, maximizing every precious calorie. These were the origins of communal feasts, where the entire tribe could gather, sharing the bounty of the hunt, ensuring no one went hungry, and binding them together through the shared ritual of survival. But food, especially in the Ice Age, wasn't just fuel for the body. It was fuel for the mind, for the very fabric of human society. Imagine those communal meals in the deep kitchen, the firelight dancing on their faces, the warmth a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. This wasn't just eating. It was the ultimate social event. It was around these fires, with bellies full and the immediate threat of starvation momentarily abated, that something truly profound blossomed. Language. How do you coordinate a 3-day mammoth hunt without complex communication? How do you teach the next generation the intricate techniques of butchering, tool making, or recognizing safe plants amidst a frozen landscape without detailed instruction? The shared meal became the classroom, the council meeting, the storytelling circle. Even with mammoth steaks and slow-cooked roasts, the Ice Age was a tightrope walk. There were no guarantees, a long blizzard, a failed hunt, and suddenly, even the most ingenious preservation methods weren't enough. This forced our ancestors to look beyond the obvious, to unlock the hidden bounty of a seemingly barren world. Their survival depended on a depth of environmental knowledge that would astound us today. They were masters of micro-foraging, knowing precisely where to find pockets of edible plants, even under a blanket of snow. Certain tubers, roots, and berries, when properly stored or processed, could provide crucial vitamins and minerals otherwise lacking in a heavily meat-based diet. They would track animals not just for their meat, but for the resources they led to, nests, hidden burrows, or even the frozen remains of smaller creatures trapped by the cold. Ice fishing, a precarious endeavor, would have been another vital skill, tapping into protein sources even when the land was locked solid. They understood the intricate web of life, knowing which parts of an animal held the most fat, the most protein, the most vitamins. The brains, the liver, the kidneys, often discarded by less knowledgeable predators, were prized. These were not primitive people merely reacting to their environment. They were actively reading it, exploiting every niche, every opportunity nature begrudgingly offered. Their understanding of animal behavior, plant cycles, and the subtle shifts in weather patterns was encyclopedic. This wasn't just about finding food. It was about the wisdom of the wild, passed down through generations. A cumulative knowledge that transformed a frozen, hostile planet into a landscape of opportunity for those who knew how to look. The ability to find sustenance where others saw only desolation. That was the ultimate trick. It proved that human intelligence, coupled with an unbreakable will could turn the harshest adversity into an arena for mastery. The Ice Age forced humanity to become the most adaptable, resourceful, and cunning creature on Earth. A legacy that echoes in every supermarket aisle and every clever survival trick we still use today. They didn't just survive the Ice Age, they won it. So, the next time your freezer overdoes it and your leftovers turn into ice bricks, remember, you're sharing in a struggle that started tens of thousands of years ago. Only now, you've got a microwave. They had a mammoth bone and a dream. Humanity has always found a way, not by escaping the cold, but by learning to thrive in it. From the frozen tundras of the past to the bustling cities we build today, that instinct remains. Adapt, endure, and, above all, eat before it freezes. Thank you for listening to this story of ancient resilience. If it stirred your curiosity, if it made you imagine the frozen silence of that world and the spark of firelight against endless snow, then remember, the next great story of survival is always just one question away. Until next time, stay curious and stay warm.